Gonna have to start with a disclaimer again. My life circumstances continue to not have meaningfully or clearly improved at all whatsoever. Again, this release and all other releases on this podcast are not and never have been sponsored at all. Again, I still have not received any compensation of any kind whatsoever for my efforts. Again, I'm absolutely unconditionally unwilling to ever accept any compensation or reward whatsoever that at all compromises my integrity, and nothing and nobody does, ever has had, or ever will have any even remotely actually good or adequate reason to believe otherwise. Anyone or anything at all, even so much as attempting to communicate otherwise at any point in time is, always has been, and always will be incorrect, only increasingly so to such a grossly extreme extent that continuing to treat me according to such falsehoods only more extremely irrefutably demonstrates absolutely unconditional, unrestrained, malicious intent towards me all along, which, once again, I am not, never have been, and never will be validating, appreciating, benefiting from, or seeing or treating as if to be anything at all beneficial or preferable to me. The whole disclaimer part I said in the last release still applies basically. I really don't want to repeat multiple paragraphs of stuff for several minutes at the beginning of every release, but it all hasn't changed at all. However, the more I insist on at least being able to cut extremely toxic pieces of garbage out of my life while retaining my dignity, as I'm clearly being extremely brutally forced to accept the extremely, exceedingly, blatantly, painfully obvious reality that everything I've experienced and I'm currently experiencing couldn't more extremely, painfully clearly serve as irrefutable evidence that the subhuman filth trying to destroy my life and get me murdered or silence me somehow for being a sincere, hardworking, typically warm-natured person will never act even remotely actually decent to me. The more I see among the worst of them disrespect me and go out of their way to harm me increasingly brutally, obviously knowingly completely against my consent and to my detriment, and try to play extremely vicious, unapologetic, toxic mind game, power game garbage that extremely deviously, chaotically tries to shift the dynamic of the situation just barely enough that their behavior puts me in increasingly difficult, completely unwanted, and non-consensual, brutal, stressful, infuriating, blood-boiling, mass murder, rage-inducing, emotional dysregulation energy that tries to leave me insurmountably exhausted, confused, and looking and feeling extremely mentally ill and hopeless no matter what I do. Essentially, the extreme terrorism and conspiracy and attempts to murder me continue, which really should be the default that anyone ever assumes any public or private behavior of any of these pieces of trash to be, especially Kimmy and Jamie, when it comes to anything with any kind of even remote implications or relation to my existence. Any attempts to communicate that they are benefiting me or ever have benefited me are blatant lies with absolutely zero real evidence to back them up. Any attempts to communicate that my circumstances have improved, aren't as bad as I claim they are, or that I'm ever forgiving or forgetting how I've been treated are blatant lies with absolutely zero real evidence to back them up. Any attempts to communicate any kind of reasoning for any reason at any point in time for any amount of silence from me on this podcast or in general that differ from my extremely clearly, explicitly stated reasoning I've communicated on this podcast are blatant lies with absolutely zero real evidence to back them up. Of course, I do not, never have, and never will consent to anyone or anything misrepresenting or miscommunicating these things. But these terrorist psychopaths obviously couldn't care less, being what they are. After the last release I made on this podcast, Kimmy actually surprisingly decided to do her next Twitch stream on a Sunday, which is the first time in weeks where she's done any stream that wasn't just an ASMR Monday. There wasn't really much of anything that happened there besides her making candles, but there was this one part.
We still have that color. Well, I say we, but it's only me. Like, you know how like people are always like, thanks for supporting our business. Like, I can't even say that because it's only me. Like, where's my teammate? Why is it only me in here? Thank you for buying my candles.
Let me make sure I've made something extremely clear. Even in some scenario where Kimmy was absolutely incredible to me and was the best girlfriend ever and showered me with love and affection like I do to her and everything, I have absolutely zero desire or willingness to completely throw away or allow to be extremely greatly hindered my own passions and professional prospects to go help Kimmy make candles or pursue any of her other hobbies or businesses or ideas. This is not, never has been, and never will be up for negotiation. I'm not saying I'd never help her at all with anything, even if she was good to me, but I refuse to ever allow her to turn me into some slave to her. I'm not, never have been, and never will be trying to become some codependent employee to her. The same as I've never expected her to be that to me. I'll be pursuing my video game development prospects entirely regardless of how Kimmy behaves towards me or anyone else, whether anyone else likes it or not. I wasn't in some kind of desperately dependent position when I first met Kimmy, and I refused to allow myself to be put into such a position, even if she's such a piece of trash. She's clearly, intentionally to this day, trying to irreparably cripple my resources and leave me out in the cold in winter that she clearly hopes I'll freeze and starve to death in. Also, with Kimmy wearing a white skirt there, I've now seen that as a similarity between her and Jamie, and I recall that there's clearly this extremely strange significance to people wearing skirts after I'm abused extremely viciously up to certain points around this time in these kind of hellish nightmare cycles that just repeat in abuse, where I'm pushed to snap at people and tell them to go screw themselves because they in reality completely deserve it, but they try to pretend they don't. I want it to be extremely clear that anyone wearing skirts, regardless of color or length or style or material, does not have and has never had any particular meaning to me, and never has and does not appease me, force me to shut up or change my position or offer anyone any leverage over me. Kimmy actually started her stream there around the same time Jamie did that day as well. She's deviously tried to shift blame onto or bring attention to Jamie multiple times recently once again through that stream and also ones that followed. So I'll just get into a montage of Jamie's stream she did after the last release on this podcast.
I think like around the end of the year, I think I get sad because I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna reach the goals I wanted to reach. It's really depressing. But not just that, it's like, I don't know. Do you guys like love? noticing me, noticing her, but you should be with me. Can make it better if you hold on. I just have like no motivation to like do things right now. Yeah, you know, love doesn't have to be so transactional. You know, I love love. I think it's really cute that humans like have such a strong emotion that defies logic so strongly. I think that's very cute and like interesting. Wait, have you guys seen a chill guy meme? I fucking love it so much. I think the core value of love for me, like I think just making people feel safe and seen, cared for, like that's all you can really do. I'm just a chill guy. But is love even real if it's not logical? I think what I'm questioning these days is why reality is like what's real is so important to people, because it's difficult to define what real is, and we essentially will never really know. Like, you know, we could all just like not be real. So I think it's very hard to live life in a sense where you're chasing what's real. But I think the realest thing, I guess, maybe is your relationship with yourself. But I notice humans really like to chase like what's real or like what's permanent. But honestly, like the concept of life itself is very fleeting, and permanence is very difficult to chase. Like people can't really say things to make me feel better. Yeah. Maybe they can. I don't know. But like, it's fine. Like, why do you guys want to make me feel better? You guys should be comfortable with my Isn't it funny? I think depressed Jamie is kind of funny. You should just enjoy it. We're just being supportive. Aw, okay. Thank you for being supportive. No, I appreciate it, guys. Please, sorry, I'm such a dick right now. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. It's very sweet that you're trying to make me feel better. But these demons are too dark for you guys. I feel like that's like my initial impression when people try to comfort me. I'm like, you don't even know. Yeah, it's fine. 괜찮아. Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding. No, my demons are for me and me only. Anything fun you're doing this week? I have some fun plans, but I really just want to lay in my bed and cry. Is my place that messy? I just have like a box that I need to take out. Oh fuck! I forgot to put on a timer. Oh wait, it's not even in the oven yet. God, I'm so mentally ill right now. It's not even funny. Or it is funny. Actually, guys, you know what? Like, my coping mechanism is actually just humor. Like, when I'm sad, like, I actually just like, I just cope with humor. Like, whenever people are like, "Oh, it's gonna be okay," like Like, I hate it when people say that it's gonna be okay. Like, I don't care that it's gonna be okay. Like, I'm still sad knowing that it's gonna be okay. You know, like, I don't give a fuck. But, like, I like laughing about it. I like making people laugh. That makes me happy. Anyways. I'm not tired. Kimmy, thank you for the raid. Wow, Kimmy's streaming on a Sunday? Thank you so much. Guys, if you guys don't know, Angel's Kimmy, she's one of my best friends. Go check out her channel and her little cool shenanigans. She has such cool projects coming up. I'm so excited for you guys to see. Candle talks! I freaking love Kimmy's candles! Oh yeah, go check out her candle store. That's why I have candles on all the time, because it's thanks to Kimmy. I haven't been now I'm a candle girl because of her. I don't like it when you guys lecture me. I feel like you guys underestimate how smart I am. But I'm so smart that I'm like, would the illusion of you guys lecturing me just be better? No, I'm kidding. No, don't be scared of me. But yeah, it's really funny because like at the end of the day, like if I have to, I will always like do the right thing, and I'll always like take accountability, and I'll always say sorry, and I'll always like understand. It's just like surface level thing. I'm just a fucking brat. Like if my buns come out ugly, or like if someone is like passive aggressive to me, or someone like I get pissed. But it's like at the end of the day, I'm actually pretty chill. But it's like in the moment I just like I think I'm just like my brain just gets addicted to the stimulus and maybe it reacts. Yeah, I guess it's true. Like you definitely become more scary when you can't give off that energy that you don't give a fuck, and I definitely have that energy. Yeah, I definitely have that energy. And I feel like people can feel it. I feel like some parts of the year I even had like a fucking try me, I dare you energy. Like I really went villain arc this year. Yeah, pull up. I think it's because like there was like a moment I realized I was like, what is stopping me? Like, why am I stopping myself from doing what I want or standing up for what I believe in? And I just questioned all these things, and I was like, wow, I'm the only one stopping myself. I wish a person would energy. Oh my god, that was the energy I had. Yeah, it's true. You do start to care less. It's so nice. Yeah. But yeah, to all my people pleasers out there and like scared, like those who are really scared to hurt people and stuff, I'm so excited for your villain arc. But you know what? That wouldn't have happened to me if I didn't get pushed off the edge. So I'm really glad I got pushed off the edge, and I do think I'm in a career or industry where getting pushed off the edge is a little easier, because there's a lot of like situations or like factors that I don't have control over. So yeah. I miss being a teenager because time went by so slow, and I can't believe we're about to be in 25. I know. I always have like, I don't know if you guys have this, but I always have this like, I have these like moments in my life that I kind of like put like a pin mark on. For example, like they're like core memories of certain times. So like I don't remember like 2006 or 2007, but I remember 2005. I was in first grade and I was writing 2005 in my like notebook, and I was like, my first grader brain was like, oh, it's 2005 right now. I'm gonna remember this. And I still remember that moment. Like, I always know that in 2005 I was in first grade. And then like another moment I had that when was when I was 12. Oh no, 13. And I really wanted my first like flip phone or phone. So I wrote a letter like for all the reasons why I should get a phone. I gave it to my dad, and I remember that moment too. I was like, I'm 13 now. Like, I should get my own phone. I remember first grade, and I remember when I was 13, and then the next time was when I was 18, and like Kimmy and I were like laying in bed at our friend's place in Toronto. And I was like telling Kimmy, like, I'm so happy, like, I love these memories. I want to remember them forever. And Kimmy was like, oh, you're not going to remember any of them. I don't remember anything from when I was 18. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, you can at least remember this moment, though. And I was like, okay. And I remember that moment. I don't remember anything else from when I was 18. So I feel like that's why journaling is really important. Like, sometimes I'll look at my old journals, and it's like a completely different Jamie. Like, oh my god, I used to be so down bad for like my first and second boyfriend. Like, the shit I wrote, it was so cute, like the shit I wrote. And then after like 22, I stopped like missing men. 23 maybe? I stopped missing men, you know, like but like pre-22, it's like I loved my boyfriend so much when I was like 17. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I would write shit like I would do anything. I'd give the world for this man. I mean, I'm sure I would still do it now, but like realistically, probably, I don't know. When you're like that young, like you just like, I don't know, you're so immersed in your feelings. Like, your feelings are your reality, you know? No, I don't hate men. I love men. But like when I was younger, I was like delusionally like in my feelings. Yeah, relationships in our teens versus like at early 20s is so different. Yeah.
Right from the beginning, Jamie did this extremely strange thing very briefly where it was like she was waving a white flag, like signifying she's surrendering somehow to someone or something. It wasn't actually a flag she was holding, but that was just the kind of vibe I got from that white thing. She was winking while doing it too, indicating there's pretty much certainly some kind of extremely devious false narrative behind the scenes that's being fed with that action. I don't know the details, but I certainly feel compelled to mention that the action she did there doesn't appease me or force me to shut up or change my position or offer anyone any leverage over me. I don't even know really what it means, but I honestly don't really care. It clearly isn't something demonstrating any real respect or decency towards me or being done with any actually positive intentions towards me. No matter what it means, I absolutely unconditionally will never compromise my integrity because of it or any implications or consequences of it. I don't know exactly what goals Jamie wanted to reach that she isn't gonna reach, but given how she's clearly been trying to get me murdered or at least bully and abuse me and attack my mental, physical, and spiritual health and overall deplete my resources until I'm silenced or my integrity is compromised and my soul is effectively robbed from me permanently, it sounds like she's only increasingly blatantly, unapologetically flaunting how much of a demon, psychopath, subhuman filth she really is by saying such things. She repeated many times throughout that stream that she's depressed. The general point I want to make sure I've made extremely clear in relation to that is that I honestly couldn't care less, and it certainly doesn't touch my heart or appease me or force me to shut up or change my position or offer anyone any leverage over me. It doesn't change anything for me that Jamie's depressed. I don't live to bring Jamie joy and make sure she's not sad or not failing to reach her goals. It doesn't matter to me at all if she wants to lie in bed and cry all day long. I couldn't care less if she kills herself out of depression at this point, especially given the extent of clear involvement she's had in people's literal attempts to murder me in real life. She obviously in reality couldn't care less about my life as a whole, never mind simply me reaching or not reaching my goals, especially with the insane jealousy she's demonstrated in how she's given me such a hard time just trying to make sure the reality of my position is extremely clear when it should have already been extremely clear without having to extremely meticulously reject and fight against Jamie and so many of the stupid things she said with blatantly false implications about me and the reality of this conflict. I'm not saying this to hate on her pettily, but rather to make sure nobody can later try to act like I felt sorry for her or owe her something or she has some kind of power over me. I don't care what goals she's talking about. I just know that if her achieving any of her goals ever involves me ever compromising my integrity or being robbed of my soul or forced to sell my soul or similar things, I will do everything in my power for the rest of my life to ensure such goals she and anyone else might have always fail no matter what. It's extremely obnoxious that Jamie's literally asking, "Do you guys like love?" in the middle of a conflict escalating as extremely as the one I'm exposing with this podcast. She's clearly trying extremely hard to position herself to avoid any real accountability and try to later make it seem like my silence was some kind of admittance to being a fake loser that wasn't really serious about my integrity and what my efforts all along were really all about. It should be exceedingly obvious she's doing this entirely against my consent, but I'll explicitly state it to remove any room for speculation or people trying to abuse plausible deniability later. Further criminal behavior from Jamie is also apparent in how she's effectively trying to massively warp and misrepresent the significance or meaning of love as if to make it seem like I support or validate or agree with whatever strange definition of love she applies, which is completely false. I don't know or really care what Jamie's definition of love is, but given how she's treated me and the fact that I'd never treat anyone like that, I'm extremely strongly inclined to believe I'd extremely strongly disagree with it, to say the least. Beyond that, I have no want or need to comment on my feelings about love, especially when it's clearly only even being presented to attempt to compromise my integrity in these circumstances. Let the record show that this is increasingly blatantly apparent evidence that Jamie is extremely deviously attempting to abuse some perception of love knowingly entirely against my consent to attempt to trap me into emotional dysregulation and deprivation in my life. This shows an extremely heavy inclination for her to claim to love me in order to very much plausibly, only in reality, exert absolutely unconditional, unrestrained, malicious intent on my life, entirely knowingly against my consent, and obviously to my extreme detriment. So I'm not just claiming she's a bad person, I'm showing irrefutable evidence with her own public behavior of her proving herself to be a bad person. I'm obviously not the only person Jamie has somehow in her life that she might be targeting with that look she gave to the camera while a song with rather blatant implications was playing, with the obvious kind of implications about feelings she's claiming she supposedly has or might be trying to express somehow. But it extremely deeply infuriates and disturbs me the possibility that Jamie's, to this day, extremely deviously continuing to make my life as difficult and deprived as she possibly can, knowingly acting extremely maliciously towards me, entirely to my detriment, by trying to act like it's anything but utmost malice towards me for her to at all make any kind of romantic and or sexual attempts towards me. I will once again reiterate that I am not, never have been, and never will be at all desiring of or willing to tolerate being romantically and or sexually involved with Jamie. If she's targeting public behavior towards me and acting like she did, clearly showing effectively what is blatant jealousy that someone is showing a different woman interest instead of her, I want it extremely clear that I do not, never have, and never will find such behavior from Jamie to be cute or sexy or romantic or beneficial to me at all. I do not, never have, and never will want or consent at all to Jamie getting in the way of my connection with Kimmy, and nobody ever had any even remotely actually good reason to believe otherwise. I've already explained how I was basically forced to attend a meetup with both Kimmy and Jamie in it because I found it rather extremely unlikely that Kimmy was going to have a meetup entirely of her own after coming to Toronto not once but twice already around that same time with her friends. Not attending that meetup because I didn't want to meet Jamie too, then simply becomes letting Jamie control my connection with Kimmy regardless, even more aggressively in fact, and simply becomes massive cowardice. Like I said, I'm not a coward. Especially even more so with the life circumstances I'm currently in, even just the possibility that Jamie's trying to act like it's even remotely reasonable, appropriate, appreciated, beneficial, or sane for her to try to act like I'm at all angry or disappointed or fighting because of any kind of romantic and or sexual desires towards her makes me especially livid that I'm being forced into constantly repeating myself on something I've already stated multiple times extremely clearly while I'm in literally life-threatening, extremely brutal, miserable living conditions that only become increasingly detrimental to me, entirely against my consent, because this extremely criminally unhinged, extremely mentally ill, massive fraud can't understand I'm saying what I mean extremely clearly when I reject literally everyone in the world except Kimmy absolutely unconditionally. This lunatic is literally, blatantly, publicly, officially admitting she's being exceptionally mentally ill these days, goddammit. I should not have to constantly elaborate and explain my perspective and reiterate my integrity, and that anyone or anything trying to paint narratives in contradiction at all with anything I've said about myself on this podcast isn't acting with my consent or best interests in doing so. Anyone, especially Jamie, effectively forcing me to have to continue to repeat myself on what should be exceedingly obvious by now, just so my integrity isn't compromised, is demonstrating fully conscious and intentional extreme utmost malice towards me that should not be at all rewarded by anyone or anything, and in fact should be utmost punished and only extremely negatively impact their existence in every regard without delay. Jamie has cried and complained on her stream about feeling depressed and having no motivation to do things multiple times now, right after I released something extremely decisive and potent on this podcast that should make it exceedingly abundantly apparent that I never should have been forced to give so much attention to her, and she never should have even been nearly so relevant to this conflict, indicating her increasingly criminal involvement in this conspiracy and attempts to murder me that is not, never has been, and never will be happening at all with my consent. It appears to me that Jamie is extremely deviously attempting to present an attitude she believes to be that which I relate to, and then trying to further perpetuate extremely false narratives about me through her extreme disrespect towards me. Through that, whether I say anything about it or not, I myself am not struggling with motivation at all, and I don't and never have attributed that in and of itself specifically to anyone, especially not to Jamie. Even Kimmy has only ever really shown any kind of plausible reciprocation to my feelings in a manner that's in reality been exhausting and detrimental for me to deal with, and that's not something I ever have or ever will find motivating. But I don't rely on motivation. I rely on my core value in how I live my life. If I'm tired because I need sleep or food or rest in general, then I'll be able to determine that because I have a lot of emotional awareness of myself, and I'll meditate and take a break from working and whatnot until I'm ready to go back to whatever I'm doing. Even in insanely brutal circumstances like I'm in, I don't have some mopey attitude like I want to just rot in bed all day kind of thing. And anyone that does, not just Jamie, but anyone else too, that's really not my problem and not my responsibility. And I most certainly won't ever compromise my integrity because of their lack of competency or decency. Literally nobody I've ever been at all significantly close to in my life somehow is actually making me feel loved, respected, trusted, wanted, appreciated, or intentionally cooperating with me or benefiting me at all whatsoever. And if they feel like they are, well, it certainly doesn't feel that way to me, and there's no real objective evidence to prove their supposed feelings of such effects on my life are at all correct either. So until or unless they actually start objectively proving it, they're just extremely and completely delusional and in reality only behaving detrimental to my existence, even more so, blatantly, intentionally, maliciously so, especially now that I'm communicating it so extremely clearly. If they at all continue to believe or act as if otherwise is or ever was the case. Like I've said, the vast majority of such people have already absolutely, unconditionally lost any chance at any opportunity to ever redeem themselves to me. I'm never allowing any of my blood relatives back into my life at all. I'm never allowing any people I knew back in high school or wherever else in closer physical proximity to me back into my life at all. And the way Kimmy's behaving, being extremely cruel and distant towards me, as she's letting Jamie terrorize my life with complete garbage like this, she's just completely sabotaging and throwing away any chances I'm trying to give her and her associates to ever be on any kind of decent terms with me as well, which then just leaves me despising humanity as a whole forever and never being close to anyone ever again, absolutely unconditionally, as I head down an extremely dark and destructive path from being irreparably traumatized by this absolute insanity that Earth is truly the most reeking dumpster fire of hellish nightmares to ever have been even possible to happen. Jamie had an extremely disgusting and obnoxious dialogue about love and transactionality, and demonstrated further extreme mental illness she has with an exceedingly unhinged epistemic nihilism perspective that I guess she calls optimistically nihilistic, or whatever the hell. She clearly thought she was being really insightful or presenting some kind of point that would have me stuck or needing to contemplate on life more or something, but she really didn't. It only further demonstrated her extremely pretentious and arrogant attitude when it comes to how she quite extremely clearly looks down on me and unapologetically treats me as subhuman filth and believes she's entitled to using and abusing me and taking advantage of me and offering me, in reality, truly absolutely nothing of real or significant or meaningful or desired value in return, while blatantly lying extremely badly that I owe her something. First of all, if she was implying my last release on this podcast or any of the anger I've ever expressed towards Kimmy or anyone else, in general even for that matter, is because of some idea that I have some transactional relationship with Kimmy that I'd be permanently stuck in, this is a gross misrepresentation of me that shows truly how lacking in awareness and or just straight up extremely jealous and intentionally malicious Jamie really is in how she deals with my existence. If Kimmy is going to have a proper connection with me at all, it's not going to be some rigidly transactional thing. Period. Or I'll just destroy her life absolutely unconditionally. This is not, never has been, and never will be up for negotiation. There's absolutely nothing Kimmy or Jamie or anyone else can ever say or do that will change this, and absolutely nothing and nobody has ever had any even remotely actually good reason to believe otherwise. They might think they do, but that just shows how delusional they really are, especially when it comes to how they see me. Second of all, if Jamie was trying to imply I'm trying to work towards or willing to tolerate ever entertaining any kind of romantic and or sexual relationship with her or anyone else on a transactional basis, or trying to imply that such a connection with her or anyone else besides Kimmy wouldn't be transactional for me, whether there's any truth to that or not, I want it to be extremely clear that I'm absolutely unconditionally uninterested and nobody ever had any even remotely good reason to ever believe otherwise. It also doesn't matter whether or not anyone claims or tries to prove their feelings to have any kind of romantic and or sexual relationship with me is real at all or not either. I'm still absolutely unconditionally uninterested, and nobody had any even remotely good reason to ever believe otherwise. My frustration and anger comes not from questioning if Kimmy's feelings for me are real, but more so simply the fact that I'm not getting the kind of treatment I want and only increasingly irrefutably keep proving I deserve from her. Since you can argue every interaction with someone is some level of energy exchange, that means all human interaction is on some level transactional, which then means the rigidity of the transactionality is the only really meaningful metric to look at, which means that my genuine, extremely intense desire to be extensively physically, sexually intimate with Kimmy in private and cuddle with her and rub up against her perfect butt for hours every day for eternity, especially in latex, and generally feel tender warmth and affection from her extensively, and how much more intensely I crave that kind of connection with Kimmy than literally anything else in life, is the only really important metric for me to look at. Since Kimmy either gives me that kind of connection or doesn't, and there's no in between, then that means I either destroy her life or we have a very much non-rigidly transactional relationship. I wouldn't say my feelings for Kimmy defy logic at all. They make complete logical sense to me. Other people might have considerable difficulty understanding the logic, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. I couldn't care less if people think that's cute or interesting. Even if I do seem cute or interesting to others, clearly that hasn't been enough to get Kimmy rubbing her latex-clad butt up against me for hours every day. So no amount of being cute or interesting is going to achieve that. At the end of the day, I'd infinitely rather be rubbing up against Kimmy for hours every day than a random escort or anyone else. So all this philosophical type questioning of love or whatever is stupidity. If this was really such a big barrier to me getting what I want, it should have been mentioned long ago, and I would have shut it down completely long ago, and I basically already implied it with everything I've been saying all these years anyway to begin with. If I wanted to question reality stupidly while flaunting being privileged with wealth and taking advantage of people that are less wealthy than me, I'd have try-harded extremely hard to become a super rich game dev CEO by now, succeeded long ago already, and be rubbing up on some random Korean escort's latex-clad butt right now, while paying discounted rates to have her all day long and cycling through women like that. Not exposing Kimmy and Jamie for being massive terrorists and frauds that extremely viciously took advantage of my sincere desires for an unquestionably real relationship with Kimmy, where the intimacy I'd share with her isn't transactional like that. It's really not so difficult to define what real is. And it's ridiculous to live your life claiming you'll never really know. That must be the epitome of yapping to say complete nonsense garbage like that. Only exceedingly out-of-touch people have the extreme luxury to speak in such delusional ways. No decent, hardworking person has their head in some hallucination where practically every aspect of reality seems up for questioning, and it's a viable life philosophy to try to treat people like it's appropriate to disrespect literally everything they say and pretend they basically aren't even real unless it's practically life-threatening to the person to actually respectfully acknowledge others' existence. Jamie literally only demonstrates how much of an actual psychopath she truly is the more she speaks. Just because people have the capability to be fake, and many people are, that doesn't mean what's real is that severely up for question. The reality becomes that an extremely fake person is so fake, their mask is the real them. So a Kimmy that submits to a non-rigidly transactional life partnership with me and extensively being really tender and loving and giving and receiving that kind of energy in a deeply, frequently, sexually intimate connection with me is really doing so whether she was doing all kinds of shady garbage beforehand or not. My desire and ability to demand and enforce that she behave genuinely and convincingly to prove to me that her feelings are real and deep and will last, like I'm sure mine for her will, is real. The fact that my attitude isn't irrational or unfair is real. It's also stupid to use the difficulty to excuse trying. You either deal with the difficulty or you live with the regret of either giving up or not trying. The difficulty to pursue something you want is temporary, even if it's lengthy. The regret of giving up prematurely or never trying is permanent. And don't tell me Jamie doesn't already know this. So she's clearly spewing garbage to try to make me look like I'm indecisive or don't recognize or care about these things. What a piece of garbage. No matter who's real or fake or to what extent, it never truly benefits me to relinquish the power and control I have over my life. Retaining and fortifying my power maximizes my chances at the life I'd most prefer, whether or not it's actually attainable, and also maximizes my chances at having at least the best possible life regardless. Throwing away my integrity means I lose the opportunity to attain things I want if they are attainable, and plunges me deeper into discomfort and lack of pleasure and fulfillment if they aren't. This isn't even some kind of extremely advanced logic. Only someone in highly emotionally reactive moments of weakness will fail to acknowledge and appropriately act upon this knowledge, and I don't believe for a second that Jamie doesn't know that. Jamie's increasingly blatantly deviously trying to constantly weaken me by constantly forcing me to deal with conflict and resistance, and then trying to negatively influence me to make what I'm sure in reality she knows are poor decisions. I do not want, need, appreciate, or consent to this happening. I never have, and I never will. Once again, Jamie has blatantly, publicly, officially admitted she's a horrible person and, in her own words, her demons are too dark for her audience. So she literally knows she'd be canceling herself and her career would be over if she admits the reality of how horrible she really is and how she's behaving in relation to this conflict and the reality of my life that I'm showing with this podcast. And that comes once again as a reaction right after I release something extremely powerful on this podcast. So she's publicly, officially, deviously admitting she's been a massive psychopath, fraud, loser, scumbag, toxic piece of garbage this whole time, and how she's dealt with and to this day continues to deal with my existence. How many bloody times does this goddamn bloody demon, literal criminal that belongs in prison, have to be publicly, officially going in public and saying she's such a horrible person to the point she can't even mention the crimes she's done because she knows it'd destroy her life, while I'm exposing it all on this podcast, and yet I'm basically ignored, and she's just laughing, having a bloody good time doing her nails with Kimmy. It's to the point where Jamie's literally blatantly flaunting that she's manipulative and pretends to want or need to be lectured or told things that in reality she already knows. Let the record show that she herself blatantly admits she intentionally plays dumb so she doesn't have to admit how toxic and horrible she really is. All the more reason why I'm completely justified in trying to give her the bare minimum amount of attention, just enough to expose her crimes and make sure I've built an extremely solid case to permanently, extremely brutally cancel her beyond possibility for recovery if I'm seriously going to be treated how I'm being treated, with such complete, brutal disrespect and lack of any genuine or meaningful or adequate respect or decency. That's not me being on a villain arc. That's me having real self-respect and exposing that people have truly been behaving with utmost malice towards me all along, knowingly entirely against my consent, and facilitating other malicious bad faith actors to also harm my life to the point of literally attempting to murder me in real life. I don't know what Jamie's trying to achieve by saying she's scary, but to me, it seems like she's trying to act like I am or should be scared of her, and she's trying to present it as if my silence would be because I was intimidated by her or forced to shut up because of all the extremely false narratives she's been trying to perpetuate about me, knowingly against my consent all this time. Note the blatant contradiction compared to how not that long ago, in a clip I've even presented as evidence on this podcast, Jamie mentioned on one of her streams that she's supposedly happy not being scary and she's just being herself. Now she's basically glorifying some clearly extremely sadistic pleasure she gets from trying to be intimidating, and how she basically tries to make the whole thing seem like a joke by calling it a villain arc instead of the fact that this is really my life and how she's seriously treating me. Further irrefutable evidence of her extreme mental instability and massive fakeness in the image she portrays of herself to others in public. Maybe Jamie's scary to some people, but not to me. I don't know exactly what kind of dynamic she has with others in her life, but she's just disgusting to me. I'm not particularly scared of her at all. She's a massive loser and a fraud, and I'd end her career swiftly, decisively, and easily if she really wants to challenge me. But of course, she's way too much of a coward to actually directly address anything I say on this podcast, and she's way too fake and terrible of a person to have any actually meaningful or genuine rhetoric that seriously can combat the truths I'm revealing about who she really is. Instead of behaving even remotely decently in response to what I say, she just makes more stupid excuses and does more yapping with weird political wordplay, mind game garbage, trying to change topics and shift blame and make distractions and delays to avoid any real accountability for all the extremely serious things I'm calling her and her associates out for on this podcast. But other people being extremely disrespectful self doesn't suddenly mean I'm going to become a loser and compromise my integrity and go on some villain arc or whatever the bloody hell these frauds want to try to abuse me into becoming. I'm not behaving how I am out of any fear of hurting others. I'm most certainly not really scared to hurt people. It's extremely disgusting and incriminating for Jamie to be massively misrepresenting my idea of love and then trying to provoke me into subhuman filth behavior like her, as she blatantly says she's excited to see me being attacked to some point of being broken like she clearly is, fully consciously and intentionally trying to achieve with utmost malice towards me that she clearly in reality fully knows is entirely against my consent. Let the record show how viciously unapologetic and shameless this criminal is, and how she's trying to destroy my life and break my spirit with her public, official, devious, extremely literally criminal abuse and neglect towards the reality of who she in reality clearly knows I am. I also recognize that there are situations and factors that I don't have control over, but I don't use that to justify behaving like subhuman filth. Because I've carried myself with extremely deep, genuine integrity and dignity in reality all along, I'm already extremely scary without trying. And I don't need to go into some villain arc to be scarier. I don't get some kind of disgusting pleasure in scaring others. Clearly Jamie can't relate to that though. She's acting like she's only just recently been basically forced to act maliciously towards me. But she's clearly known all along that she's being extremely jealous of Kimmy and trying to sabotage my efforts. This isn't some villain arc for Jamie. She's just actually a villain, a demon, and a fraud. And so is Kimmy with the way she's behaving. Jamie once again mentioned the Toronto meetup and how she remembers lying in a bed with Kimmy. First, the story they gave was Kimmy and Jamie were in a bed in a hotel, or separate beds in the same hotel room or something. It wasn't even really clear. And now it's become Kimmy and Jamie were in the same bed in their friend's house. And that's a core memory of Jamie's. How do you have huge blanks in chunks of years of your lifetime and only really remember a few small core memories? That sounds like a memory that's almost as bad as someone with extremely serious Alzheimer's disease. This is actual, extremely ridiculous, absolute insanity that lacks basic common sense. Jamie wouldn't be able to function at the level she does and be a content creator and run a whole separate clothing business at the same time if her memory was even close to that bad. Jamie clearly hasn't actually forgotten that Toronto meetup practically entirely like she claims. She's just trying to deny it because she's clearly been massively lying about it behind the scenes with Kimmy to try to destroy my life with extremely false narratives she and others have been perpetuating entirely against my consent and to my detriment. This has clearly always been happening with extreme malice towards me. These massive pieces of garbage met me once and tried to completely sabotage and destroy my entire life and literally get me murdered in real life after leaving me out in the cold in winter to starve and freeze to death because of massive lies about me that have absolutely zero real evidence to back them up and don't even remotely plausibly benefit me at all by any stretch of the imagination to be purported. And now they're trying to force me to compromise my integrity after trying to leave me in such an extremely brutally deprived state. They're trying to make me desperate as if I owe them something, to try to validate those massive lies about me. Meanwhile, they try to also make up even more massive lies to make it seem like I'm at fault somehow, or owe them something, or I'm working towards eventually compromising my integrity somehow, even when I maintain my integrity extremely firmly, which is also completely false. This isn't just some gossip. This is extremely seriously, criminally conspiring to murder me with massive lies. And I'm extremely serious when I say I'm pressing criminal charges on these people and seeing them serve long prison sentences for what they're doing to me right now. There's literally no other possible effective consequence of behavior like this continuing. Especially under circumstances like this, where I'm even extremely clearly exposing everything in public officially on this podcast, and yet they still only continue. Since I'm the only one that actually provides any clear explanation or story for what happened at that meetup in Toronto many years ago that I attended, whereas these frauds only say random shady things and give remarkably little detail about anything about it, I should be believed about how I said it happened in its entirety, and nobody should ever believe anything at all contradictory with what I've said unless Kimmy and Jamie are going to publicly extensively elaborate on it, at least at a level of detail similar to what I have, and they can provide irrefutable evidence of anything incriminating they claim I did. I already know that no such evidence exists, so that's clearly why they aren't doing it. Speaking of which, I find the mention of this event of Kimmy and Jamie lying in bed together to be exceedingly shady as time goes by. Not only is Jamie mentioning it multiple times and basically always goes back to it every time I try to increase pressure on her and Kimmy to stop treating me like subhuman filth, like there's some hidden deeper meaning behind it, and things that happened which neither her nor Kimmy want to speak about publicly for reasons that are left exceedingly unclear. But then there's also this picture Kimmy showed of messages Jamie apparently pretty recently sent her. The concept of Kimmy doing magic? Spiritual people consider speaking anything to be spell casting. Combined with, what do we have here? A pizza. Just so happens to be in the picture. I've already explained what kind of implications pizza can tend to have when influential figures publicly mention it these days. I don't believe for a second that Jamie's unaware of what I said in that regard or is ignoring it. At this point, I suspect Kimmy and Jamie engaged in sexual activities together on that bed in their friend's house when they were in Toronto. Obviously, they were probably quiet and didn't do it with their friend or anyone else watching, so probably only the two of them actually know it happened. But given how Kimmy knew Jamie when Jamie was still underage, that suggests Kimmy can be seen as having groomed Jamie, meaning Kimmy was effectively behaving like a pedophile in being sexually intimate with Jamie there. Either they actually did sexual things there, or for some reason I'm being led to believe such things happened there. It seems something to do with Kimmy and Jamie lying in bed together there has relation to me having a huge smear campaign against me and people saying massive, extreme lies about me. Since I've seen both the concepts of Kimmy literally lying somehow that she's done things that in reality entirely the credit belongs to me for, and basically seen extreme destiny swap type garbage where she's trying to steal credit for my positive qualities and dump her negative qualities onto me, and I've had to defend myself against insane claims of having engaged in some kind of pedophilia when in reality I know for absolutely certain that I've never done such things and absolutely zero real evidence exists to even attempt to prove otherwise, and nobody's ever even tried to seriously communicate to me that they have any even remotely good reason to actually believe otherwise, then I see quite solid reason to suspect Kimmy's engaged in some kind of pedophile behavior at some point in her life in a manner where she somehow was able to try to frame it on me. Again, I've never done anything sexual with Jamie and never wanted to do anything sexual with her either. I never spoke to her when she was underage. I never wanted to do anything sexual with her or have any kind of romantic involvement with her at any point in time, whether when she was underage or of legal age. I was friendly with her at that meetup, but I never even once actually flirted with her or made any kind of sexual comments at or towards or about her to anyone. Even long after that meetup, and to this day, I've never pursued any extent of romantic and or sexual relations with Jamie, and I have absolutely no desire or willingness to ever do so. I didn't do anything sexual with Kimmy or Jamie, or anyone at all for that matter, the entire time Kimmy and Jamie were in Toronto for that meetup, and I've never met Kimmy or Jamie ever again since that meetup. I find it quite suspicious that Jamie mixed in this dialogue about lying in bed with Kimmy with talking about having a boyfriend at 17 years old and her whole perspective on missing men and love and relationships. What is she even trying to say by saying she used to be so delusionally in her feelings? Let the record show this exceedingly shady behavior repeatedly was exhibited by Jamie shortly after my releases on this podcast. And then Kimmy also decided to do ASMR Monday the following day as well, which I'll also do a montage for.
We are very cozy for the fall and winter time. When is the first day of winter again? Wait, what? The first day of winter is Saturday, December 21st. Why does that sound so wrong? I thought all of December was winter. I can't believe the first day of winter is a few days before Christmas. But I guess that makes sense. I think winter is until March. What's crazy is that whenever I think of Christmas, I think of snow and cold. But most of the world gets the coldest temperature in like February and March. Most of America as well. Like, December isn't even that cold in LA. It still is like 70 degrees, which is pretty warm for Christmas. Here we have a very addicting vanilla scented body lotion. I love the material of this bottle. It's so matte. My hands have been so dry. Whenever I put lotion on, it just like drinks up the lotion. My skin is so thirsty. My skin's a thirsty bitch. I mean, what? I've been watching Sex and the City because Jamie's been watching it. A true classic. I probably should not crack my knuckles in ASMR because it's really loud. I do not recommend cracking your knuckles. I started cracking my knuckles in 7th grade because I wanted to pretend like I could beat up all the boys in my class. But joke's on me because I could never stop.
early on, Kimmy's questioning the start of the winter season and its relation to the actual consequences on the weather, mentioning it's typically the coldest around February in a lot of places. I'd say that's probably quite accurate for Canada, at least around the Greater Toronto area, where I've lived pretty much my entire life. January and February tend to be the coldest months of the year. I was actually already homeless in winter in early February of this year, and I already survived that entirely on my own, without anyone's help and with my integrity completely intact. I already know to attribute that instance of me experiencing homelessness in the coldest time of winter extremely clearly in no small part due to massive, prolonged abuse, neglect, and literally criminal activity being carried out by both biological relatives as well as subhuman filth I've mentioned before, who tried to destroy my life with lies she started spreading all the way back in high school and tried to infiltrate my life permanently with them through perpetuating them to Offlane TV members and their associates. More importantly, Kimmy's now herself established a standard that, leaving me out in the cold with abuse and neglect she's facilitated people from my past inflicting on me, and herself participated in with the massive smear campaign against me that her and Jamie have clearly been spearheading all along, even as early as the beginning of December, demonstrates irrefutable desire and effort from her to deprive me of resources as much as possible, destroy every aspect of my life as much as possible, and leave me to die in winter. It's already well into December at this point, and she's only done even more harmful things publicly since, and isn't communicating with me privately at all or doing anything at all actually beneficial for me, or behaving at all in any manner that actually meaningfully shows any kind of remorse or genuine desire, willingness, or capability to begin direct communication with me and actually embracing the connection I've been saying I've wanted with her all along. So at this point, it's already well beyond reasonable doubt that she's behaving with rather extremely painfully apparent, absolutely unconditional, unrestrained, malicious intent towards me, and in reality was doing so all along. And with this kind of behavior continuing, it should absolutely unconditionally be assumed that anything her or Jamie do is only an utmost malicious continuation of such. I've noticed Kimmy's mentioned liking matte materials specifically multiple times recently. Note the contrast as well, because multiple times in the past, she's explicitly mentioned she really likes shiny things too, so it's rather strange. Seems kind of forced to me that she's talking about liking matte materials. Maybe she's saying it as more of a I don't hate them kind of thing, rather than that she prefers them most, which would be totally understandable. It's hurtful if she's trying to imply she's turned off by the idea of wearing latex for me. But at this point, even that could be something she's either doing because she feels forced because of whatever reasons, or maybe she even genuinely just doesn't want me to feel pressured to express arousal for her body if I don't completely genuinely mean it, even with her not wearing latex clothing. I really do find Kimmy's body utmost incomparably sexy, whether she's wearing latex or not. I've never even in my entire life seen her in any of the latex clothing I've actually been talking about wanting to see her in, and I still feel that way. Genuinely. She's clearly not allergic to latex or extremely averse to wearing latex things, so she'd definitely have to be especially cruel to be dating me and not wear latex clothing for me, at least sometimes. With how often she wears even just the random latex gloves she's been wearing rather often in the last couple months or so for what must be behind the scenes deeper reasons that remain rather unclear, she clearly isn't shying away from implying it'd even be rather often that she'd wear the latex clothing I actually want her to wear if we were together. putting me in an even more difficult to deal with situation when she's also being so distant and difficult in general and giving mixed signals and trying to justify her toxicity and completely avoid any real accountability that would actually allow us to be together in an actually fair, reasonable, tolerable manner. In general, I'd say the matte look is okay. I don't hate it, it's just not nearly as arousing to me as a glossy look or material. But not everything has to be sexual. As far as sexual stuff goes, Kimmy's body would look incomparably sexy to me even in clothing of matte materials as well, just not as sexy as glossier materials. So I want it to be extremely clear that me talking about my liking of latex clothing is not, never has been, and never will be an invitation to Kimmy to try to turn me off or look for some kind of excuse to cause resistance or problems in our connection. It's literally just being honest about what I like. After so much resistance from Kimmy, I need her to know rather clearly that she can't try to lie about what kind of sexual intimacy I've been after and use that as yet another excuse to try to justify her abuse and lies. Also note that while I didn't request it and it doesn't appease me or force me to shut up or change my position or offer anyone leverage over me, regardless of what she calls it or whatever lies she might say about it, Kimmy is clearly intentionally making it a point that she's wearing lip gloss repeatedly recently, indicating to me there's either want and or need she feels to arouse me and get my attention and perhaps compel me to not lose hope that she isn't a completely irredeemable subhuman filth, truly completely unwanting and unwilling to genuinely open her heart to actually loving me and being a decent person to me in a reasonable manner. It doesn't actually give her or anyone else leverage over me at all, but I bet she's trying to use it as leverage somehow. Kimmy just embracing knowingly doing things she knows I'd be inclined to be aroused by isn't her doing anything beneficial for me. I don't just want Kimmy to arouse me. I want her to actually be physically, sexually intimate with me in real life, in person, in a manner that also allows me to comfortably indulge in that arousal and also feel overall extremely thorough sexual satisfaction with her. Neither her nor anyone else has ever had or will ever have any even remotely actually good reason to believe otherwise. That stream isn't the first time Kimmy's mentioned that she's basically formed an addiction to cracking her knuckles because she wanted to act tough like she could beat up other people in school when she was young. So we already see from a young age that Kimmy had violent, unhinged, mentally unstable tendencies. Why the bloody hell is a 7th grade female so aggressive and attracting so much negative attention to herself that she wants to act like she can beat up the males around her just to feel okay somehow? If we look at it from a psychology angle, there's probably some pretty serious daddy issues going on there for one thing, but general anger issues as well. Her dad was in the military and would be gone a lot from what I recall her saying in the past. So combine that with an overbearing mother she's also told me about early on. And on top of that, some strange sexual dynamic with her older brother and also her generally having a lack of even having an idea of psychology or any really proper coping mechanisms for most of her life. And there you go. An extremely deeply disturbed, mentally ill, narcissist, psychopath, maniac, criminal like Kimmy. This fraud prides herself in overthinking and practically acts like she thinks she's a psychology god. But she hasn't even actually healed herself from the most basic childhood traumas that should be easily identifiable to her with even semi-decent psychology knowledge. To me, it kind of comes off like Kimmy's also trying to act like I am or should be scared of her. Again, just like Jamie, there's absolutely no actually real reason I would be. I'm really not particularly scared of Kimmy, Jamie, or any of their associates at all. I really don't know how the bloody hell Kimmy can clearly see extremely concerning things of what I'm releasing on this podcast, and yet somehow she just sleeps and wakes up and feels she's fine. I most certainly am not fine. Like I said, I can survive, but I'm certainly not happy. I'm extremely unhappy. I sleep and wake up after releasing things and just see more bloody hellish nightmare things I never wanted happening. My life still feels like it's all just an endless, miserable nightmare where I'm cursed to endless, increasingly, extremely, deeply disturbing rage and sadness perpetually that makes me want to brutally mass murder people daily. Seeing people's reactions to my releases only infuriates me more and makes me feel more disrespected and neglected, and basically just proves my despise of humanity is completely warranted and justified, and my worst nightmares are reality, no matter how much I wish and try to make things different. I most certainly don't want to be told to relax by Kimmy or anyone else when my life is such extreme, perpetual, sheer, hellish nightmare and has been such hell for so long with no clear or actually emerging prospect of getting better how I'd like, and in fact only worsens daily. If I respond to this extreme toxicity, these subhuman filth try to make it seem like I'm just an overly dramatic loser that tries to constantly cause chaos and start drama, as if it's some kind of entertainment for me or I have some ulterior motive I achieve with it. If I don't, they go to extreme lengths with insane abuse and lies to try to misrepresent what my silence truly indicates. Let the record show I've extremely clearly, irrefutably proved this time after time, and yet nobody is properly being held accountable or facing any real or meaningful consequences, and that's happening entirely against my consent, wishes, and best interests. This is extremely criminal, repeated attempts to cover up serious crimes against me that ultimately amount to conspiracy to murder, and literal attempts to murder me in real life have been made multiple times as a direct consequence of being facilitated by this behavior, and I'm extremely clearly stating this multiple times and clearly am not joking or intending for this to be taken at all lightly by anyone. Kimmy mentioned that she really thinks Snowball would like a friend. So I feel compelled to mention that it really doesn't benefit me or appease me or force me to shut up or change my position if Kimmy gets another cat or pet of any kind. And since there are extremely strange lies with Kimmy trying to treat me like I'm Snowball or consent to her seeing me as Snowball, I feel compelled to also mention that I'm also not looking for Kimmy or anyone else to try to force some kind of friend on me, entirely regardless of their association with Kimmy or her friends. I'm not looking for friends and won't tolerate any being forced on me. I don't have any particular want or need for friends right now whatsoever. I found it really strange. Kimmy gets good sleep after going to Disneyland? There's no way she means the actual place. Is this some kind of strange metaphor for pedophilia-related crimes or something? Is this another P. Diddy pizza box type thing I don't know about? Why would going to an amusement park let Kimmy get good sleep? I can't really offer a clear explanation on it, but I've documented the evidence that Kimmy said this, so she can't deny it later. If I ever figure out what it really means and what she's really saying helps her get good sleep here. It's multiple times now that Kimmy's done this weird thing talking about saying she feels like she's 22. I don't associate being 22 with anything particularly pleasant or good. It would have been around the time I met Kimmy, which would have been a wonderful experience, but looking at the situation now, I should have identified that as the start of the biggest nightmare ever for me, not anything good. At least, certainly when she insists on extremely badly disrespecting and neglecting me constantly, endlessly, like she has been ever since the beginning. Kimmy being 22 would have been around the time she started streaming. So I don't even know what it means for her to say she feels like it's around that time for her. But she's messing around with going to extremely great lengths to try to suppress and sabotage me and get me killed off lies and basically make it abundantly clear to me that it really was my worst nightmare when I was around 22 and met her and thought it was me meeting my life partner. So maybe she's trying to seem happy about something that was really her worst nightmare, but she's trying to gaslight herself and others that otherwise is the case so she doesn't expose herself for being a massive piece of trash, fraud, psychopath, narcissist, loser, scumbag. I really don't know. Overall, it's like, what the bloody hell kind of attitude is this? What the bloody hell does this subhuman filth mean? There's nothing to worry about, so she won't worry about it. There's a huge thing to worry about. This is a huge problem for Kimmy, and it's a huge problem for her right goddamn bloody now. And then there's the further hurtful and fakeness-filled garbage Kimmy did on the stream she randomly decided to do a couple days later on a Wednesday, again surprisingly and atypically to what she's been doing normally these days.
Hello everybody, welcome back, This is ASMR Wednesday. How do you guys like my shirt? I feel like a butterfly or like a betta fish. I got my nails done today. I unintentionally match with my shirt. Let's do a close up. They are supposed to be like a light blue, but I think they turned out to be kind of purpley. I went to get my nails done with Jamie today. I am in a very good mood today, so hopefully you guys can feel my good mood through your computer screens or phone screens. And relax. Hello, Kelvin. I heard you're a fuckboy now. You've been getting all the girls in New York. Sorry, was that? I didn't mean to expose you. Man, Kelvin grew up, man. We've known him since he was like 12. Oh gosh. Okay. I'm just kidding, Kelvin. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Get out of here, Kelvin. Why? What are you? Get out of here. Go. You know, time freezes based off of when I met somebody. So if I meet someone and they're like 15, in my mind, I can't see them as like anything other than like a baby. Okay, Kelvin. Okay. So. Oh my god, wait, Kelvin, you have a Lambo? Wait, really? I mean, like, that kind of changes things. Okay. No, but seriously, I heard that, I think that, like, I don't know. I'm gonna stop talking. I need a big, strong man like Kelvin to help me. Oh my god, if only I had a big, strong man, Kelvin. Kelvin, I need you to move to LA. I need you to help me. Do not call me babe, Kelvin. Don't. No. No. Bad boy. No. You know the installation is effortless when even Kimmy can do it? Okay, see, that's the Kelvin I missed, okay? The freaking menace. I feel so fabulous in this outfit. Like, you guys have no idea. Like, I feel so, like... Okay, I need to get serious. I mean, when is this ever, why are we getting serious? What even is being serious for? Okay. There's the premium finishes, so. Okay. They look even better in person. Yep. I'll confirm when I visit Kimmy's room. Kelvin. You're so annoying. Like, that being said, Kelvin has come over to my room before in Just Friends. I invited him over. Because he's my friend. He's my friend. Just friends. Okay. Happy Thanksgiving, Kimmy. Enjoy the holidays. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Oh my god, everybody on the East Coast. Wait, Kelvin, wait. It's Thanksgiving in 7 minutes. Oh my gosh. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Almost. We can count. Oh my gosh. We can count down Thanksgiving in every single time zone. What would you like to eat? I want... What do I want? Can eat anything. I want to eat at a Michelin restaurant in New York. So Kelvin, could you like book us a table? That would be
So, her shirt didn't have any particular meaning to me. I don't ascribe any particular meaning to butterflies or betta fish either. The concept of butterflies has been a recurring strange thing for Kimmy for years. I've noticed. So that probably was to appease someone or something. But it doesn't appease me or force me to shut up or change my position or offer anyone any leverage over me. Kimmy got her nails done with Jamie. Ugh. Yet again, more mention of Jamie, and me see what kind of extremely devious garbage Jamie's on. So more weird blame shifting and whatever else all this attention Kimmy suddenly decided to give Jamie in recent times attempts to achieve. I don't know why Kimmy would be in a good mood, but I certainly haven't been. For reasons that should be exceedingly obvious if you aren't a massive piece of garbage, extremely severely disrespecting the clear extreme integrity I've demonstrated with the truth of my life I've been sharing on this podcast. I don't know what that weirdness with Kelvin was, but I'm pretty sure Kimmy isn't seriously romantically involved with him. If anything, the way Jamie talks about Kelvin, I'm much more inclined to believe Jamie has some kind of serious romantic involvement with him. Regardless, I do not and never will validate Kimmy being with anyone other than me, and that certainly includes Kelvin. I find Kimmy's attitude talking about no feeling is permanent in this kind of situation to be exceptionally devious and malicious, particularly towards this conflict. It seems she's clearly trying to imply it's really temporary, the feeling of devastation and utter despise of humanity that the insurmountable trauma of being denied of the connection I've always wanted with her inflicts on me. This really makes me livid beyond words. It's not goddamn temporary. And no feeling is permanent is an extremely stupid kind of attitude to be throwing around at this time in this conflict in general. Even if I could have little moments of numbness or a bit of pleasure or happiness or something, when that's ultimately all encapsulated in a huge, vast majority of the time feeling, it doesn't matter if that feeling isn't permanent. It's permanently recurring, frequently, and tainting my entire life extremely severely. And you know what? I'll be damned if Kimmy thinks I won't make her life an extremely brutal, unwanted, hellish nightmare of nightmares where she's stuck feeling the same, if not much worse, behaving like this. So if she's really going to behave the way she is, she's really going to learn the hard way that the extremely severe damage to her life for treating me so unbelievably horribly is truly permanent. And so are the feelings it's going to bring her. There's not much of any at all really meaningful or significant substance that these frauds Kimmy and Jamie did after that, since I intentionally stayed silent and waited to see what would happen after it became obvious I wasn't going to have some self-sabotaging, enraged reaction that they clearly seemed so extremely, unbelievably, desperately to be trying to provoke from me to try to validate their extremely false narratives about me. But let's look at a couple things Jamie did on her following stream.
Have you ever played devil's advocate so hard you end up switching sides? Oh, all the time. My favorite is when I'm like playing devil's advocate and then like after like 30 minutes of debating I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. And the other person's like so annoyed. Because sometimes I already agree with them. I just want to like talk about it. I want to hear everything. I want to hear it. Do you purposely disagree for fun? Yeah, I definitely do. Guys, I need stimulation. I'm only here for, I'm gonna die one day. I want my entertainment. But it's also because I like opening I love talking to someone and asking a question that completely stumps them. because I love when I receive a question like that. When I get a question that makes me go like, huh, like damn, like I never thought of that. Like I love hitting that for people. And sometimes it's like darts. Like I just gotta ask a lot of things until I get there. And it can really open up really great conversation between two people. And I love, like, even with like anyone in my life, family, friends, right? Like dating, like stuff like that. Like I love reaching a point where it's like, I feel like you can get so vulnerable when you're like caught off guard like that. And those are like really great moments. You know, like what my recent like favorite thing is? Like, this is gonna sound so bad, but I love like, I love seeing, okay, how do I word this? Anyone who is like, I would say like, you know, like a good person and, you know, isn't malicious. Someone who is not a malicious person. I love seeing non-malicious people like live in insane delusion. like just like the whole manifesting stuff and like just like being a little delusional. I love that. Like I love seeing people do that for themselves because I don't know, something about it is like, I love it. I don't know what it is. I always like, I love feeding people's like, when I'm like really drunk and I'm at the club with my friends, like, you know, Jess, there's been times where, because Jess is such a baddie. And I feel like things have happened to her where she forgot how much of a fucking baddie she is. And like, I saw this like when I started getting closer to her this year and I was like, dude, Jess doesn't know how much of a fucking baddie she is. So like whenever we're drunk, I always look at Jess and I hold her and I'm like, Jess, the world fucking revolves around you and no one else fucking matters, okay? You gotta put yourself first and everyone else can fuck off. Like when I'm drunk, I'll literally tell her this. She's like, oh, okay, love you too, Jamie. But like, I'm like, damn, like Jess is such a baddie. Like you can't like let people step on you. No, I am that friend. I don't give a fuck. Like I am that friend. But it's because I know like she would do well with that confidence. Like I know she'll never hurt anyone with that confidence, you know? She'll only do good for herself and like she's such a giving, selfless person. I'm like, dude, like she would just end up giving that back to people. So I love feeding her ego because it's deserved too. I'm like, she's gonna think you're insane. All my friends think I'm insane.
It's only increasingly incriminating and obnoxious that Jamie only increasingly unapologetically flaunts a careless attitude towards this conflict to a rather blatantly malicious extent. I haven't learned anything from Jamie, and she has yet to ask any question or mention any kind of discussion she considers deep that has had me stuck or lost for words. I haven't been caught off guard by anything she's said. I'm only increasingly livid beyond words with a building, blood-boiling, mass-murderous rage that this piece of trash is repeatedly, increasingly, unapologetically, blatantly flaunting that she's intentionally trying to sabotage my life and facilitating other bad faith actors to do the same, yet she continues to face zero real consequences or public repercussions for this exceedingly psychotic, malicious, toxic, abusive, disrespectful, inconsiderate attitude and behavior. This piece of trash literally is publicly officially flaunting that she's bored with life and uses fully, knowingly, and intentionally terrorizing me with utmost malice and literally trying to get me murdered in real life as a form of entertainment for her. She's literally blatantly admitting that she not only sees me as subhuman, but unapologetically treats me as such along with her associates. She's literally on some extremely delusional garbage where she's sadistically trying to get some kind of rush or pleasure from saying things she thinks I never thought of, informing and maintaining my position. Or, more likely, she's just extremely disgustingly enjoying pretending to the world like she has any even remotely good reason to believe there's any meaningful part of my position I haven't thought of, so she can drag on this conflict and the emotional dysregulation I have to endure just to diffuse this constant bloody stream of false narratives as an extremely disingenuous effort to try to cover up her and her associates' crimes against me. There's literally no way for Jamie to phrase it well because it's so grossly psychotic, abusive, and malicious. While I'm left out in the cold, homeless in winter, and eating out of the garbage because I can't even afford to buy the cheapest food while I'm literally avoiding hitmen and dealing with gang stalkers on a regular basis, this exceedingly disrespectful, inconsiderate, subhuman filth is blatantly flaunting on the internet her extremely twisted, disgusting, sadistic enjoyment of seeing me suffering and her looking down on me and trying to basically see my perspective on life as extremely delusional, pretty much no matter what I'm saying, as she tries to dismiss reality and inflict defamation on me with extremely unhinged, mentally ill garbage so severely that my life circumstances remain in excessive turmoil until some point she clearly hopes it destroys me. How can anyone look at someone who would publicly blatantly say, "I love seeing anyone who's a good person live in insane delusion," while they're going to extremely great lengths to abuse a good person into a situation where literally anything they do can be twisted and labeled delusion, and think that person's an even remotely decent person? Jamie's essentially flaunting that she tries to break people down so she can be seen as a savior or a positive force in their life when she's seemingly positive or supportive towards them, which is extremely narcissistic. I could do that thing people do where they just clip a small part of something someone says and then take it out of context to force the person to explain themselves and cycle giving attention to people, but let the record show I've intentionally refused to do that here. Jamie goes on to talk about Jessica for some reason, but I really don't know about Jessica's life, and I won't jump to assume Jamie's trying to imply I intentionally hurt Jessica somehow. I certainly haven't, but I'm also not going to tolerate Jamie possibly trying to make me seem weird or fake or like a bad person for refusing to embrace any kind of romantic and or sexual involvement with Jessica despite her supposedly being a good person. In case Jamie was trying to make such implications, and she probably was, then in bringing attention to Jessica repeatedly now, Jamie's clearly implying she's somehow trying to achieve a similar effect on me somehow, basically flaunting that her behavior tries to force me to live in delusion that she in reality extremely clearly recognizes as such, and she's trying to paint that as somehow being a good or desirable thing for me since she's talking about how it appears to be a good or desirable thing and how she deals with Jessica. So either Jamie's trying to say that it's extremely delusional of me to believe my life is even remotely actually worth living while authentically being myself, meaning she's literally straight up telling me to commit suicide in real life while she's intentionally, knowingly, aggressively almost trying to influence and cause that outcome, or she's trying to somehow suggest that even though I've went to exceedingly, extremely, irrefutably, abundantly, immense lengths to try to achieve the kind of connection I've always wanted with Kimmy before being forced to realize I'll never have it, somehow it's extremely delusional for me to understand the reality so extremely painfully clearly that I'm being forced to deal with. Meanwhile, she's doing absolutely nothing actually helpful to me as she tries to take credit somehow for being a positive influence or force in my life, and even trying to act like I wronged her and I owe her something, while obviously presenting absolutely zero real evidence because there isn't any, because she's a goddamn bloody massive liar and fraud. And then there's one particularly devious thing Kimmy did on her stream the following day. She said that while doing ASMR, in reference to ASMR, I most certainly would not say ASMR is better or comes even close to as good as the pleasure of sexual intimacy. Even in a situation where I imagine some theoretical world where I have the most wonderful connection with Kimmy and she's lovely to me all the time and everything's as amazing as it could be, and I'm able to enjoy Kimmy's ASMR, whether through a recording or in real life, as much as it'd ever be possible for me to enjoy ASMR, I'm absolutely certain it would never be more pleasurable to me than physical sexual intimacy with her. And neither Kimmy nor anyone else has ever had any even remotely adequate reason to even at all slightly suspect I do ever have or ever will feel otherwise. I, of course, find it extremely hurtful that Kimmy would even suggest she'd find ASMR more pleasurable than physical sexual intimacy with me. But then again, she's never actually been physically sexually intimate with me to know. She also could just be saying that to try to piss me off because she knows it'd be really hurtful and she's clearly trying to provoke a reaction from me practically any way she thinks she can. Maybe ASMR is better than sex to Kimmy right now with anyone she'd have easily accessible to her to have sex with, because empty sex is something she's had so much of at this point in her life that it's really started to lose a lot of its enjoyability after so many years of her being a slut and a whore for the holidays and every other day as well. Putting the garbage these scumbags do on their streams aside, I noticed this extremely strange comment on my last release on this podcast. Someone called Maxwellvox posted it, as you can see, asking me what my goal is with this podcast and saying he's not sure it's reaching the people I want it to. Extremely strange, since that's implying this person, for some reason, has in mind some idea of me having particular desire for my podcast to reach some audience, specifically that he both feels I'm failing to reach through my own efforts and also that he seems to want to help me with reaching more effectively. As if I have any particular desire to reach anyone outside of my mailing list, which is completely false. I know Kimmy, Jamie, and at least some of their associates must read or at least be informed of what I say on this podcast, which means they know they can't deny later if they ignore it and I end up destroying their lives for lying about me how they are. Since the way they've been behaving to me rather firmly indicates they clearly haven't been able to ignore it, that means it's reaching the audience I wanted to rather effectively already. I don't think it's a stretch to assume this person is the same Maxwell that has tried sending me a friend request on Discord a while back. Yes, I noticed. I intentionally have ignored it. I'm now inclined to believe he's someone from the Grand Theft Auto role-playing community on NoPixel who is being fed massive lies about me from these narcissist, psychopath, subhuman filth frauds that have been trying to rob me of my soul and destroy my life with lies and silence me somehow. Entirely regardless of how Kimmy or anyone else treats me, I'm seriously, absolutely, unconditionally, unwanting, and unwilling to do Grand Theft Auto role-playing on NoPixel, and I am not, never have been, and never will be working towards or attempting to facilitate anyone else doing it. I've said this multiple times already, but disrespectful, lying frauds continue to inflict massive defamation on me and attempt to abuse me into compromising my integrity and being robbed of my soul, which, again, is happening entirely against my consent, and I absolutely unconditionally will never consent to it. Again, any contracts that at all attempt to communicate or compel me to behave otherwise are entirely fraudulent, and I do not, never have, and never will consent to them. Like, I'm not an idiot. I see what's happening. The reason why Kimmy and Janet have been planning to make a one-lifer character is because they have been conspiring to sabotage my life with this role-playing garbage from the beginning. It's especially clear to me now. Entirely against my consent, they've been lying that I have some strange secret obsession with Janet, when that is not, never has been, and never will be true at all. And I do not, never have, and never will consent to anyone misrepresenting me as if otherwise is, ever was, or ever will be the case. Also, even with that aside, let's say they even somehow seriously retract all of their extremely malicious defamation that's extremely aggressively trying to make me seem like some unstable, unhinged, creepy fraud that's been obsessing over Janet or generally operating with ulterior motives from the beginning somehow. I still absolutely unconditionally have absolutely no want, need, or willingness to do Grand Theft Auto role-playing on NoPixel, and I don't and never will trust this Maxwell or anyone else that is or appears to be trying to drag me into that role-playing community. It doesn't matter if I'm homeless in winter and starving with hitmen being sent after me as I'm being gang-stalked and my life is extremely brutal to deal with every day relentlessly. I'm never selling my soul or tolerating anyone robbing me of it. Again, I do not endorse or have any affiliation with either major political party, and that remains regardless of which Kimmy might associate herself with. My feelings for her are not, never have been, and never will be endorsement or affiliation with either major political party. Any indebtedness to any political party Kimmy might have should not interfere with the kind of connection I've always wanted with her, and any continued efforts to challenge my authenticity about having no obligations to any political party will only be further demonstrated to the full extent of my power. I am not, never have been, and never will approach my connection with Kimmy from a mentality of extreme desperation or lack, no matter what my physical circumstances are. Having standards, knowing what I want, and having made a decision long ago and sticking with it, for better or worse, is not desperation. It's integrity, confidence, self-awareness, intelligence, positive qualities. Society is just filled with extremely trashy people, and that's why people try to label it as creepy, because the actual creeps, at least in my opinion, the players that glorify having one-night stands or flings with women and see them as trophies to add to their body count, are seen as the champions or the ideal. That's not how I'll ever live my life, both because it sounds generally unpleasant to me and because it's morally lacking for my standards of how I live my life. At the same time, Kimmy's always been, without a doubt, the first person I'd choose as an intimate partner. Seriously, and there's nobody with any real evidence otherwise, because there isn't any, because I'm being completely authentic. Not out of any enjoyment of any of the negative things she's done to me. I've said this before. I've always tried my very best to see the best in her. I've tried extremely hard to believe in her ability to genuinely want to be better and actually start meaningfully taking steps to be better and really have the connection I've always wanted with her. Nobody can ever even come close to comparing to her, in my eyes, in appeal as an intimate life partner. She's the whole package to me, and I saw it all those years ago when I met her. I never would have put even remotely so much time and energy into the connection otherwise. I've went to extremely great lengths to make her feel like she's actually the sexiest and overall most appealing intimate partner prospect I could ever fathom existing. The most precious person that could ever exist to me other than myself. Like she's the goddamn queen of the world. I'm not going to tolerate being her goddamn last choice or whatever its choice, as if there's anyone in her life that's even slightly better for her than I am. If she's really going to see and treat me effectively like I'm a consolation prize, or she can ever find someone truly even just a little bit better for her than me, even while she clearly knows I'll never feel that way about her, then the connection I've always wanted with her is literally impossible, absolutely unconditionally anyways. So extremely viciously, absolutely unconditionally, thoroughly, meticulously, completely destroying her life and being the absolute worst of enemies against her and all her associates at any cost is the only path I really can and will take in life, being who I am. I really genuinely couldn't care less if anyone from my past is changing their perspective on me now and might want to try to reach out to me and try dating me or helping me or whatever else. I genuinely literally couldn't care less if they actually kill themselves because I'll never let them back in my life and I'll never let them get away with lying about the reality of how extremely, exceedingly disrespectful and neglectful they all were to me my entire life. I absolutely unconditionally am rejecting and permanently completely cutting off all those people regardless, both blood relatives and anyone I once called a friend. If they ever try reaching out to me or anyone I may have in my life, entirely regardless of anything else, I will not even entertain a response unless they force me to destroy their lives even more brutally and ensure whatever response I have is in reality purely detrimental to their existence, short-term and long-term, in a way utmost unpleasant for them and unwanted by them. Kimmy continues to try to provoke me into raging and self-sabotaging reactions to her increasingly extremely toxic and hurtful public behavior while she facilitates Jamie to further purport extremely false narratives about me, as well as she tries to increasingly brutally unapologetically inflict defamation on me and attempt to massively misrepresent the reality of who I am, what I've been trying to do with this podcast and in general all these years since I met her, and what my reasoning for any amount of silence would be. I can already see what kind of direction this is heading. This exact same kind of extremely brutal, hellish nightmare loop of abuse, lies, and neglect has been repeated in my life many times already in all the years I've been increasingly brutally terrorized by these criminals, and I just never was made aware that Jamie was such an extremely serious part of it until now. I don't, never have, and never will consent to or benefit from the continuation of this garbage at all, and I'm not having it repeat ever again. Kimmy is absolutely unconditionally the only person I'll ever date or even consider being at all romantically and or sexually involved with ever again. Period. Absolutely no exceptions, no wavering, no indecisiveness, no confusion, no jokes, no exaggeration, no excuses. I've went above and beyond, going above and beyond to make it exceedingly, extremely clear that I couldn't be more focused and sincere in everything I've been saying all along. Anyone at all attempting to present otherwise is being extremely, grossly disingenuous in reality, and I do not want or consent to them at all doing so, ever, for any reason, at any point in time, to any extent, absolutely, unconditionally. If Kimmy's dating anyone in any capacity for any reason, they must break up immediately, absolutely unconditionally. I'm the only person she should ever be dating in any capacity ever again for any reason at any point in time. If she's secretly married to anyone, she's getting a divorce promptly, absolutely unconditionally. I should be the only person she ever gets married to, if at all, ever again for any reason at any point in time. If she's pregnant or ever gets pregnant for any reason, she must get an abortion immediately, absolutely unconditionally. I absolutely mean it when I say I've never wanted children, and I am not, never have been, and never will be at all upset at Kimmy for forming our connection in a manner where the only realistic decision is for both of us to deny each other of ever having children with anyone for the rest of our lives and just prove to each other we want and enjoy that. She'd best not have a problem living her life, being happy to never have children, just as I am, with anyone. If she, for whatever reason, has already ever had a child, that child should effectively be sacrificed to whatever demonic entity or entities that led to me being so extremely viciously terrorized and denied of a proper childless connection with her prior, and any such children absolutely unconditionally should never be something that either me or Kimmy ever have to worry about at all ever again. These things are not and never will be up for negotiation at all, absolutely unconditionally. Anyone that has a problem with any of these things, I'll destroy their lives along with Kimmy. If they want to do things that way, then I couldn't care less who you are or who you think you are. I'm not scared of you, and I don't owe you anything. Get out of my way immediately, or I'll actually bring your absolute worst unwanted nightmare of nightmares into reality and make you seriously, extremely, deeply regret ever being born. You will more than just regret defying me, and it will only end increasingly, extremely badly for you and anyone in your life that you chose to oppose me on such incomparably serious, literally extremely deeply existential matters. You can't say I didn't warn you. I'm seriously so goddamn bloody done with constantly repeating myself. Any stupid excuses Kimmy or Jamie or anyone else makes is complete garbage, and you absolutely unconditionally should never believe anything even slightly inconsistent with the reality I'm extremely clearly stating and proving with this podcast. If Kimmy or Jamie or any of their associates ever try to lie to you and manipulate you into believing you will be fine if I don't get compliance. I'm not having these goddamn bloody piece of trash frauds trying to act like I owe them something, or I'm sabotaging myself, or I want anyone to get in my way. Note the extreme contradiction and blatant, absolutely unconditional, unrestrained, malicious intent of conspiracy to murder level terrorism on my life in their extremely toxic, unhinged, stupid attitudes if they now try to make another bloody excuse to continue to have Kimmy refuse to directly communicate with me properly and start properly dating me. That's not me being goddamn bloody delusional or indecisive or insecure or fake or any of this garbage people so desperately want me to be or want to get away with lying that I am or ever will be. That's them being the massive scumbag, subhuman piece of trash, toxic, narcissist, psychopath, criminal terrorists they only increasingly, irrefutably prove themselves to be with their public, official attitudes and behaviors in response to my podcast and existence as a whole. Beyond that, the way Kimmy is to approach me is humbly and warmly, and not merely friendly. She'd best be apologizing profusely for so extremely painfully, clearly coming off to me as an extremely serious, actual murderous, narcissist, psychopath demon, swearing on God, on her life, on any and everything that she will never do such things to me again. She'd best be willing to open up to me about what kind of insanity of a nightmare her life must have been for her to be so chaotic and terrible to someone she obviously should have known all along as an actually extremely, thoroughly, irreplaceable, absolute angel to her, and has done nothing but improve her life considerably ever since they entered it. She'd best be begging profusely for the insurmountable, incomparable, absolute blessing of being the best girlfriend I could ever imagine having, and rubbing her latex-clad butt up against me for hours upon hours every day in person for the rest of eternity, and eagerly so as I would be to experience it with her. She'd best book the next flight to Toronto to see me personally, in person, promptly, and talk about things and sort out this conflict properly as quickly as at all humanly possible, so we can start feeling extremely warm and loving towards each other and starting what should be an extensive period of practically nothing but cuddling and talking about life with each other and being tenderly, sexually intimate with each other as we plan our future together with adequate honesty and transparency. I'm not goddamn bloody joking. If she's warm and comes off sincere and loving, like she should be, if she's even going to bother trying, then I'm already publicly, officially doing literally everything she could possibly ever reasonably expect of me to make it extremely clear that I'm genuinely very much open to it and will respond calmly, maturely, warmly, and with the sincerity she should understand she should expect from me and reciprocate towards me. I truly, infinitely prefer that from this conflict over any other outcome of this conflict, and that should have been exceedingly abundantly apparent this entire time. But I refuse to beg to be treated fairly, and I refuse to be abused into toning down, displaying the level of malice, aggression, and overall negative, harmful energy that I'm receiving from Kimmy and her associates with this conflict being in the state it's in. My visibly, unapologetically expressed extreme anger should serve as extremely stern demonstration that I can and will go down an extremely dark and destructive path, destroying Kimmy's life and whoever else is seriously involved in leaving my life in the extremely brutal circumstances it's currently in if Kimmy or anyone else continues to push me at all any longer. I'm never compromising my integrity regardless, and absolutely nothing and nobody has any even remotely adequate reason to believe otherwise. Continuing to terrorize me with excuses and trying to force me to elaborate on my life and perspective further is so exceedingly viciously malicious that it is not and never will be even remotely reasonably a fault of mine if I refuse to entertain such blatant malice from people who would have established themselves as absolutely, unconditionally, irrefutably, utmost malicious towards me, and literally trying to waste my time and energy, and exhaust me, and drive me crazy, until they somehow manage to get me murdered, or try to get me to commit suicide, or end up in jail, or prison, or a mental hospital, or some extremely crippled state of existence for the rest of my life. I've already made it exceedingly obvious that there's only one way Kimmy could ever actually redeem herself at all and actually turn this conflict towards a positive direction. Proper, direct communication with me and seriously, genuinely, eagerly embracing the kind of connection I've been saying I've always wanted with her. Immediately. If she really cared and was a decent person, she wouldn't look at me being angry and saying she can go to hell and calling her subhuman filth or whatever and act like that means she's hopeless or somehow I'm being fake or disingenuous. If she's really such a deep thinker as she claims, she'd have no difficulty at all understanding I'm under extreme stress and in extremely brutal living conditions while having to deal with an extremely hurtful situation that clearly calls for extreme harshness and me extremely decisively pressuring her for a decisive and clear final decision on the future of our connection. It should be rather extremely clear to her that this isn't fun or pleasant for me at all, the state my life's been in. She should be considering that she might as well seriously try reaching out lovingly and know that at least she tried and I can never say she didn't. Then, if she makes an honest effort and I don't respond the kind of way she should know she should be expecting me to respond, I never have any place to talk badly of her or her associates ever again. It's a completely free, quick, decisive, effective, irrefutable method of truly proving I was always really the problem if I ignore her or react poorly to it. Literally, all she has to do is send me a private message on any of the accounts I've listed on my podcast YouTube channel. It's really not that hard to send me a DM on Discord or Twitter or Instagram. I haven't blocked her on anything and I don't have any particular plans to right now. It's not like I have some major pressing reason why I won't be able to respond within 24 hours at most, but instead, she's only increasingly, extremely, painfully, clearly proving to me that she's exceedingly unwanting and unwilling to ever act like an even remotely decent person to me in her entire goddamn bloody miserable, pathetic failure of a life, while publicly continuing to try to play victim extremely deviously and shift blame around and even act like she's somehow doing me a favor in being literally the most harmful she could ever possibly be to me and bringing immense negative impact to both her own life as well as mine in doing so. In the past, this abuse would repeat for weeks upon weeks if I just stay silent until usually a month and a half, after which point Kimmy will extremely deviously, disingenuously do some garbage that equates to some form of mental breakdown in public that's effectively trying to cry out for attention from me. If I try to give her attention and maturely try to give her an opportunity to stop being such a goddamn bloody abusive subhuman piece of filth, she just tries to trap me again into more abuse cycles and tries to deplete my time and energy and resources and overwhelm and destroy my life with her lies and toxicity yet again. If I ignore it, even if I'm extremely bloody miserable and homeless and suffering immensely and sad and angry at how she's disrespected and hurt me extremely badly and then abandoned me with blatant complete disregard for my life, and she in reality knows that extremely clearly, she pretends like I happily moved on. She even goes as far as posting on her Discord that she's finally at peace with her past. And then she tries to extremely viciously, unapologetically abuse the extremely false narratives her and her associates have formed about me to completely non-consensually fake my death and act like it's appropriate for Kimmy to start heading in the direction of officially dating someone else. Last time, it was Celine. Just thinking about this repeating makes me want to go on an extremely vicious, murderous rampage in real life. Like, just brutally slaughtering every person in sight, on sight, endlessly. A rage I cannot even put into words adequately. And while I continue to communicate increasingly clearly, Kimmy continues her extremely abusive, absolute silence towards me and this situation in any meaningful capacity. The only thing she does is extremely devious, abusive, passive-aggressive jabs at my dignity and sanity and reputation with massive, blatant lies about the reality of my life and what is in reality an extremely, entirely only negative impact her and her associates have ultimately ever had on me. I'm literally bloody homeless in winter. I have to try to sleep while shivering at night as it goddamn snows. I'm literally goddamn digging through garbage cans just to find any specks of food to survive. I've basically had to live like this the majority of the time I've known Kimmy, because everyone else in my life was also extremely abusive, neglectful, manipulative, and intentionally conspired to deprive me of all my resources and leave me in increasingly detrimental, brutal living circumstances to try to get my life to go on a downward spiral into literal death in real life so they can cover up their abuse and crimes towards me. That's also absolutely not at all a secret from Kimmy, Jamie, or their associates. I've repeatedly explicitly talked about being homeless and eating out of trash cans throughout the years. Instead of pouring my time and energy into starting my own business and selfishly gaining financially and professionally, with disregard for the suffering I saw Kimmy experiencing without me, as she started having mental breakdowns every time I tried giving her space I thought she wanted, I poured an unbelievable amount of time and energy into loving her and trying to improve her mood and life, even though it was extremely detrimental to me. Multiple times, I tried showing her in front of others that I have immense video game development prospects and that I achieved amazing things even just in a few days of putting intense focus on it. Every time Kimmy would go on stream the following day and literally have an existential crisis, mental breakdown, she explicitly herself referred to as such, subtly, desperately crying out for me to have mercy on her and not give up on her yet again, only for her to continue to mistreat me, increasingly extremely viciously when I let her back into my life in response, no matter how much I tried to maturely communicate with her and work towards a positive outcome instead of the extremely negative, destructive one she clearly has known all along she's been heading towards. There's absolutely nothing in Kimmy's life that she should consider more urgent than promptly directly communicating with me and showing me warmth and affection and caring that's long overdue, unlike she's ever shown anyone else in her entire life. If she wasn't even remotely decent person, then it'd be a top priority for her right now to book a hotel or something for her to stay at as she plans to take the next flight to Toronto to meet me, and she'd be talking to me and updating me and letting me wait for her in wherever she's renting, while she also offers to have food delivered for me. And yet she wants to bloody go and make more excuses to disrespect and neglect me, increasingly blatantly, unapologetically, with utmost malice, officially, publicly, and facilitate her associates to also do their absolute worst to my life, and yet somehow this all gets spawned onto me every goddamn bloody time, and they try to act like I deserve this attitude and behavior from them that in reality I couldn't be further from deserving. Kimmy is clearly intentionally weaponizing silence towards me. She's not silent because she's shy or doesn't know what to say or doesn't believe my feelings for her are sincere. She's silent because she's trying to control my life and leave me in as extremely, brutally, detrimental, literally life-threatening circumstances as long as at all possible, as she and her associates do everything they can think of to try to sabotage and suppress me speaking my truth on this podcast as they conspire and attempt to have me murdered, with sending hitmen after me and leaving my personal and professional lives both so extremely severely crippled that I have nothing and nobody except a crappy little laptop and a few pieces of clothing to survive. She's trying to punish me for defending myself against her and her associates' abuse. She's trying to make me feel invisible and hopeless, and as if I should be questioning if I did something wrong. I've already stated the connection I want with Kimmy is a healthy one. A healthy relationship involves healthy communication. Healthy communication isn't constant, extremely vicious mind game garbage and punishing someone and trying to break down their life with silence and massive defamation with absolutely zero real evidence ever presented while knowingly, almost maliciously harming someone's life intentionally. I deserve a relationship where I don't have to worry if my partner is going to be silent towards me as a weapon to try to extremely abusively force me to comply with their extremely unreasonable, unfair, abusive demands, to be suppressed and sabotaged and have my soul robbed from me demonstrably, irrefutably, entirely against my consent for their extremely selfish gain, because they're an unhinged narcissist psychopath that's incapable of actually acting like a decent human being and being authentic about it. I really wonder if Kimmy's going to directly contact me in the near future and start behaving like an actually decent human being to me and explaining what the bloody hell her explanation is that doesn't make her literally the biggest piece of trash ever, literally trying to murder someone that's only ever had the best intentions towards her. If she won't, then let's see these massive frauds directly address my podcast in public in their content for once in their goddamn bloody miserable failures of a life and see what kind of outcome that results in for them and for me with things being this way. I'm not afraid. I'm really not. They're the terrorist cowards that are in reality so extremely clearly aware of how extremely they are entirely at fault here that they're terrified to actually fight back, because they know they will lose extremely badly, and unless I get prompt compliance, their personal and professional lives will be completely destroyed sooner or later, no matter what anyone or anything says or does. I will make absolutely certain of it, no matter the cost. There's absolutely no even remotely good reason Kimmy would need some excessive amount of time to process this on her own. If she needs to process things, she should want to process them while directly communicating with me properly on a personal level. There is absolutely no valid excuse for any delays. Absolutely none. If she isn't going to start directly communicating with me properly in the very near future, she damn well better not try crying out for me somehow or have some kind of mental breakdown later in the future over the reality she should know extremely clearly right now. I'm seriously never moving on or changing my position regardless. Silence because I'm proving my integrity and refusing to waste time entertaining blatantly, unapologetically, almost malicious abuse from demonstrably unapologetic, massive terrorist criminals literally conspiring to murder me doesn't mean I'm happy and I've moved on and Kimmy can be at peace with how she's treated me. She should never even remotely experience anything even slightly resembling peace in her life ever again if she won't start behaving properly towards me in her absolute mess of a life before it's really too late and she's actually absolutely unconditionally extremely to an extremely horrible fate of her truly unwanted worst hellish nightmare of nightmares she probably never even fathomed was possible.